The process of creating hydrogen only requires that you spark the hydrogen in the very beginning to do the electrolysis process. The hydrogen itself will create enough electricity so that we don't have to go and bring in outside sources of electricity via solar panel or wind. So the hydrogen itself will generate enough electricity that the hydrogen will need in order to create more hydrogen.
Oh, wow. So hydrogen is nuclear, right? Hydrogen is nuclear.
Yeah, okay. If you take hydrogen and put a radioactive element to it, that's how you get the bomb. But the hydrogen itself, the molecule, you can burn that, and that's going to emit enough energy that it's going to be much more beneficial than if you're using solar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Medallion Excellent podcast. I'm here with Juan Lacey, CEO of Farms Close By. And today we're going to be talking about the farming industry and the many technological opportunities available to us. Juan, introduce yourself. Let us know what you're all about.
Yeah, Dwayne, thanks. My name is Juan Lacey. I'm CEO of a company called Farms Close By. We're a company that is aiming to eliminate the problems that you find within food deserts across the country by being able to provide local grown food to people who heretofore haven't had access to it, either because they are so far away from grocery stores that they have no close access to it, or the ability to get there has been reduced because their neighborhood is economically poor and don't have access to public transit.
So I like to define terms. So when you say a food desert, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. The classical definition of a food desert is a neighborhood where you live in the neighborhood and you have to go 2 miles or more to be able to get to a grocery store.
And is that a prevalent problem in the United States?
Yeah, it's a problem that's become more severe due to the pandemic. Because if you could imagine, if you were in a neighborhood where you had a grocery store that was struggling, during the pandemic, it just got a worse condition. So those people found themselves losing the grocery store that they were dependent on, that itself was struggling to stay open. And then when the pandemic hit, things closed down. The supply chains had problems being able to bring things in, found themselves having problems. Yeah, the local grocery stores around the country have been really hit hard because of the economic effects of the pandemic. So what we see now is that grocery stores are fewer and between. We see neighborhoods that, because of death that has occurred in those neighborhoods, the client base for the grocery stores have shrunk also. So it's been a lose-lose situation for them.
So how does your company solve those issues?
Good question. First, we look at it from a point of view that the grocery store itself has to come in and match up to the size of the community. typically when a grocery store goes in, it's of a size that's about 100,000 feet in size, square feet. We look to go in and we're looking at a size that starts out at 10,000 square feet and move upward. That way we can tailor ourselves to the size and need of the community. But we're doing something strategically different beyond that. We're bringing in food that the community wants. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about foods that, from an ethnic standpoint, and we're not just talking about African American, we're talking about all type of ethnicities. People want food that they are used to buying and consuming. And usually grocery stores will buy generic things because they have to satisfy the entire chain. We can tailor that on a store-by-store basis and bring in things that people want and desire.
Yeah, so you are bringing in food to local grocery stores that the community actually wants to eat, which I can see a strategic value to that. But how? How do you know what exactly the community wants? And also, how do you deliver those goods?
First of all, we're working under the model of a hub and spoke. It's not that complex. It looks like a wheel on the side of your car. The center of the wheel is an operation that's large. We're going to be growing massive amounts of food there. They're going to be suited for that particular region. The spokes are going to be franchise units that people will purchase through us. On the front end will be a grocery store. On the back side will be a micro farm. We work with wellness community professionals in those neighborhoods to find out what it is that they need, and then work with the community in the form of polling them to find out what it is they want. We marry that together, and we find that people will then have a desire to purchase from us the things that they themselves want.
Mm. And how is this? How does this transaction occur? Is it done through an app or a website? What interface are you using?
We're using all the above. We're going to use an app that is tailored for farms that we have access to. That way we can home delivery. People can then come into the grocery store as a conventional grocery store. Can come in with your shopping cart, purchase what you want, and leave with it. We'll do home delivery, and we'll deliver people the food that they want on a timely manner.
So, how do you make this possible? Like, do you own a farm with goats and sheeps, and do you have like someone just out in the farm planting these things? And how many acres of farmland do you have?
We are going to place ourselves in 52 locations around the country. Each of those locations will be hub operations. Those hubs will be in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 acres, close to local downtown areas. The satellite farms will be embedded into communities themselves, just like any other grocery store would be. And they'll be within what I like to say, gas station distance from the front door. So if you can imagine a local gas station where you would go to have your car repaired, that would be the local grocery store, the local micro farm.
Okay. So that's a good answer, but I'm not sure if I got the answer I was looking for. Or do you have like a farmland that you're growing this food? Like, how are you able to grow this food?
Okay, we're going to be growing the food in a combination of vertical farm and greenhouse structures so that we can actually have it grown all year long. That's the answer you're looking for. And we're not, because of the fact that we're going to be growing indoors and we're going to be using greenhouses, we don't need to have hundreds and hundreds of acres committed to this in each location.
So what's the strategic advantage of using vertical farms?
Good question. First, we're going to be able to lower the price point that people have to pay for food because we're going to combine the farming technology with cutting edge energy generation by using hydrogen as our energy source. We will not be on the grid. Because we're generating our own electricity, we can actually lower the cost of operation and make it that much more affordable for communities so that they can acquire the type of food that they've always wanted, but had to heretofore pay much more for it.
So you said you're using hydrogen to generate energy. Like, how does that process work?
Well, there's a process called electrolysis. We're going to bring technology in from Europe. It will allow us to actually be able to generate hydrogen on location with a little bit of electricity. The franchise unit will also be able to use the hydrogen themselves. We're going to have hydrogen-driven cars, which you now see becoming more prevalent in states like now California and Massachusetts. That will allow us to be a very low price point for food when people buy our product on a continuous basis.
Very, very interesting. And what's your customer base like currently?
Our customer base, well, first of all, we're looking at about 23 million people across the country who live in food deserts. Our customer base is absolutely as diverse as you can imagine. Typically what we find is that we're looking at a household of 2 adults, 1.5 children, in a median income that is pretty standard across the country. But we go median income to lower income families is what our customer base actually looks like.
Okay. That's very interesting. Do you also have a plan to work with large chain grocery stores? Because I know there's been a trend in the recent years where these large grocery stores are starting to work more with farms, with local farms, so they can get the ingredients as fresh as possible. Do you have any plans to, branch out to those?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that question because one of our first buyers of our products is more than likely going to Food Dollar in general, simply because those stores are in those areas we talked about, which are called food deserts already. And they're going through an expansion. They're going up to 13,000 stores in short order. So we look to actually place our food in their coolers. But let me add something else to this. We have a collaboration already agreed with an organization in Kansas City, Missouri called Canby's Markets. They're going to actually be in each of our hub operations. We are going to use them to be able to collect food from other local farmers, collect food that we don't grow. They're then going to take their non-profit status and put coolers into convenience stores so that they can put local grown food that they collect outside of our door, combine it with ours, and then bring it into those neighborhoods. So Canby's Market will allow us to be able to address food needs in areas where we may not want to place a grocery store from farms close by, but still be able to supply the food into those neighborhoods that do need the food, like all of them actually do.
Yeah. So, Candy's Markets are those like what city or what municipality are those? Is that chain located?
Canby's Markets is currently operating in only one city in the U.S., located in Kansas City,
Okay.
Missouri. They've been searching on a national basis for a farm to kind of piggyback on with. We found them. We have actually met and worked out all the particulars, so they're ready to go whenever we open up in Pittsburgh. This will be this location. And I might also add that when we get started with this, we're going to go from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, and then spread out through the South and then come back up north. Because like I said, we're looking at going into 52 cities. Now, I want to mention one other thing here. Both of us are African American. One of the things that we have in our history is that back in the 1920s, our farmers were kind of pushed away. They were pushed off their farm. Our program of franchising will actually bring African American farmers back into farming by having a 49%, 51% split on mortgage, so that we'll actually be the mortgage holder. They'll be able to buy the property. They'll be able to set up, and then we'll actually start pushing more diverse community farmers back on the roles of farming in the agriculture.
Wow, that's very important.
We're actually trying to promote this actively for all minorities, women, and vets, so that we can actually advance each of those demographic groups into agriculture in a way that's going to grow them as well.
Very, very, very cool. I really admire that. Definitely balancing the playing field and opening these opportunities for more people. And traditionally, we've always been getting our food from, sources that we don't really know, how well they treat their workers. So
Right.
what would make you different?
Oh, very good question. What makes us different is the fact that we're going to put a brand new idea on the playing field when it comes to food and agriculture. When was the last time that you actually knew by name the farmer you're buying your food from? Ever.
Never.
This will allow you to be able to, right, this will allow you and everybody else a chance to be able to know their local farmer, just like they know their local doctor or their local pharmacist. So that if they want to have something known for specifically, they can then talk to that local farmer who's a couple of blocks away and say, I've got an event coming up and, a reunion coming up this summer. What's the chance of me being able to get a specific type of cabbage? We can then address that. We can take a special order for whatever the event might be. It could be a wedding, and we could grow specifically for it. People will be able to actually get to know the person and people who are growing their food for them. Because eating food is practically the most personal thing you can imagine. You're buying something and you're putting it inside of your body. What better thing to have is the comfort and confidence in somebody that's growing it for you, rather than right now you go pick up a package and trust that that's okay.
So how much pounds of food can you grow using these methods?
Let's throw some numbers
Like vertical
around.
farming.
Yeah. The hub operation is going to do 2 million tons of shrimp per year, over 250,000 pounds of salmon, 9,000 pounds of leafy greens and lettuce every week. We're going to do 2,000 tons of tomatoes, 1.2 tons of strawberries. Let me announce here, we're also going to be doing, for the first time in the country, we're going to be growing indoor corn, wheat, soy, and rice. And we're still working on the metrics for that right now because that's cutting edge stuff.
Wow. So what are the economic opportunities that this process will present? Or is this more of the same as far as this industry? Or how would you contribute to these low income or desert cities or desert areas in a way that other companies have not already done? So
what we anticipate is that we're going to create an economic mushroom, if you will, that will grow in each area, so we can actually lift up ideas of people that would like to form businesses. For instance, possibly we would have a bottling company that starts up. We might have someone who is a business that wants to start an agricultural law practice, or we might have somebody who wants to create some sort of logistics company that can be based in that area and provide us with transportation. in ways that we don't currently anticipate. So we look to actually create an economic base from which other businesses can actually start and take advantage of this tax law that was put into effect in 2017.
Could you go more into this tax law?
Opportunity zone is legislation that allows businesses to receive rolled over capital gains money, and the people who are rolling over the capital gains and put that money into the OZ fund will get a forever tax loophole if they allow the money to stay in the hands of the recipient for 10 years. Over those 10 years, the companies that receive the funding, they disperse their capital gains to the capital gain recipient, and that money is taxed on a much lower rate also. That is something that's not being done a lot within diverse community. The reason why I know as much as I do about the Opportunity Zone is I've been following it ever since it came into creation a few years ago. It's going through a sort of like a tweaking or an upgrade right now. The legislation is not going to disappear, but it's actually going to become more effective. The unfortunate thing, though, is that most people in these communities who have businesses don't even know that they can take advantage of this at the present time. And we're looking to try to advance that knowledge so that when we come in, we can actually help businesses to start up. We ourselves will be funded through it, and we'll help others also to be able to get themselves started and to be recipients of the monies.
Wow. So let's go more into your technology. The Sun Puke Uplift is one of your featured products on your website. Could you go more into that? It says you can grow up to 8 tons of produce. Like, what is that limited in some way?
The only limitation is the technologies that we place around it. What I mean by this, the lighting, the cleanliness of the water. We're going to grow and create our own liquid fertilizer. So those scientific parameters that kind of work around it, that's the only thing that creates the limitation as to how much you grow.
That's very interesting. And, this is definitely important because in recent years, we've maybe through trends or maybe the media, there's definitely been a importance placed on having organic food, right? And we all know that in affluent societies, there's grocery stores that definitely provide these organic foods, and not much of them are GMO grown, I guess. And this has provided a healthy ecosystem, especially to reduce the amount of acid in the body and to provide like a healthy type of system or a healthy intake that will allow your body to become stronger and do more things.
We're going to just forget about that altogether. We're not even looking at any sort of genetic change because we don't need to do that. I'll give you a case in point. I have corn. Okay, corn is an outdoor plant. We all are used to that. What usually happens is the agrarian researchers will figure out how to grow the corn so that the corn is more able to withstand heat, drought, all the situations that we see occurring on our nightly news. When we put something indoors, we take away all the strain that these crops will have to deal with. Therefore, there's no need to have any sort of genetic mutation, and we don't have to be concerned about that. We can take practically anything with the right controlled settings and have it grow. And not only have it grow, have it grow faster, more healthy, and more tasty. So you end up with something that our consumers will want and desire, and also talk and tell others about it. So we are creating a customer base that, in the market vernacular, we create sticky customers who will want to come back and bring others with them.
It's very, very cool. Also, I've heard that Bill Gates, he's buying up a lot of farmland throughout the country. Could you explain more on what is the strategic advantage in doing that?
That's a noble thing to do. However, here's the situation. Bill Gates, as everybody knows, is very rich. And he's going into farmland, and he's buying farm from farmers who can't pass it down to their children, so that the farm actually will stay farmed and won't be turned into, a shopping mall or homes. That's a different set of parameters than what we're talking about. What we're talking about is bringing the farm closer to the people. Bill Gates is keeping the farm at a distance. He's not doing anything to change that problem. And I mentioned the word problem. The problem is there's a large amount of carbon that is exposed to the atmosphere because you've got this farm that's far away from the. When you bring the farm close to the customer, you no longer expose the air to emissions and carbon that is going to create global warming. So it's a different set of parameters. Bill Gates is doing this. He's just keeping the farm where it's at. We're changing that parameter and bringing the farm closer to people and eliminating the negative aspect of the transportation. Because certainly in the wintertime, we all know that what happens here, we have to bring our corn all the way over from the West Coast. So we truck the corn 2,000 miles, and we emit all that emission, that gasoline fume, on the whole trip across the country. Because remember, the truck has to go two ways. It has to go and then come back.
Yeah, definitely helping to reduce our carbon footprint is going to be very important. Now, because you're doing that, does your company qualify for any grants? Because the government is giving out a lot of grants relating to global warming and reducing our carbon footprint. So do you qualify for any grants?
I'm glad you asked that question, because Farm Close By has just recently created a nonprofit organization called Farms Close By Services. So yes, we do qualify for grants, but now not just on the for-profit side, but also on the nonprofit side. And with both of them working in tandem, we've made ourselves available with the scientific research that we're doing to be able to grab a hold of monies so that we can advance tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 type of food growing.
What does that mean exactly, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3?
Sure. 1 is leafy greens and lettuce. 2 is things like berries, raspberries, and fruit trees. 3 is the traditional wheat, corn, soy, and rice. And traditionally, tier 1 is what you see whenever you look at a greenhouse or a vertical farm, because that doesn't require a lot of electricity. But when you start getting into tier 2 and then certainly into tier 3, you have a lot of electric needs. And again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we're embracing the idea of using hydrogen. Hydrogen, we're able to actually address the higher electric needs because certainly we have to reproduce the sun indoors, and corn, well, let's stick with wheat for a second. Wheat requires at least 14 hours of sunlight. Imagine leaving your light on in your own home and what your electric bill would be at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And when you have acres of that, the bill can be much higher. So we're going to be actually generating our own electricity, and that's why it's so important for us to embrace the use of hydrogen and the electrolysis process that we have found in Europe, which we're going to bring here to the States.
So as well as hydrogen, which I'm not too familiar, let's go into more on how that works in a bit. But are you also using various solar or energy generation renewable sources such as solar or wind?
Solar is probably not going to be used, and I'll go into that in a second. Wind is okay, but it doesn't get us there. It doesn't generate enough electric load need to offset what we need for these lights running as much as they do, and not like hydrogen does. Here's an example. The bomb that was created that actually ended World War II was a hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
Okay. That energy is what you find in using hydrogen to generate your electricity. Elon Musk said that in 2024 he intends to see his cars using hydrogen as opposed to electricity. In a few years, he sees his vehicles moving over to hydrogen. We should take note because we've seen from Tesla. So let's talk about this for a quick second. The process of creating hydrogen only requires that you spark the hydrogen in the very beginning to do the electrolysis process. After that, the hydrogen itself will create enough electricity so that we don't have to go and bring in outside sources of electricity via solar panel or wind. So the hydrogen itself will generate electricity that the hydrogen will need in order to create more hydrogen.
Oh, wow. So hydrogen is nuclear, right? Hydrogen.
No. Yeah, okay. If you take hydrogen and put a radioactive element to it, that's how you get the bomb. But the hydrogen itself, the molecule, you can burn that, and that's going to emit enough energy that it's going to be much more beneficial than if you're using solar. That's the thing that most don't understand.
Very, very. So this is the electrolysis process. You said a word.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying it right. Okay, so this is the electrolysis process. And This is not electricity. This is like a different form of energy.
Electricity is used as the spark to create the electrolysis process. In other words, electrolysis is the process of taking an electric current and scientifically connecting that current to a molecule of water, which then causes the H2 and the O molecule to break apart. And then down one tube will go the oxygen, the O, down the other two will go the hydrogen, the H. And it's the H that we then send off, collect, compress, and then do a engine that's going to create electricity. And here's the kicker. Why would you use electricity to create electricity? If you stop and think about this. Okay, here's the thing. Once the hydrogen process of electrolysis starts, we don't need any more electricity. All we need is more water to come in. Okay, so the amount of electricity to generate all the electricity we're going to have is off the scale. And if you start to think about this, Dwayne, really what we're talking about is what should happen on a national basis. Imagine if you had low-income communities that had access to very low-costing energy. That's the hydrogen. Right now, we see very few vendors out there that make hydrogen burning home furnaces. You follow this? Okay. So what we're talking about is actually the future, because low-income communities and all communities across this country, they should be able to actually, in years to come, find themselves able to see their overall household expenses lower once industry embraces and brings to the marketplace hydrogen burning home furnaces, hydrogen burning air conditioners, and other devices like that, because hydrogen itself can be generated at the home by water. Imagine if you could just turn your tap on in your kitchen and send it to a hydrolysis box, which I might add does exist. It's only in Europe. And you could then generate your own hydrogen for your house and then send that to your furnace and heat your home.
So how clean is this process?
That's the process. How does what?
How clean is this process? Like, will this contribute to our carbon footprint or reduce it?
When you burn hydrogen, what comes out of the tailpipe is water.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
So this is just
zero.
Wow.
No emission.
So if this sounds like a miracle cure to me, because if this is so efficient and all it takes is water, and we have an endless supply of water, then shouldn't this be like talked about? Why is this more talked about?
Here's the problem. I'm in the state of Pennsylvania. I think you are too.
Oh, no,
okay.
California.
Okay, cool. We're right now dealing with trying to figure out how to put charging stations across the country. Okay, certainly within our state of Pennsylvania. I think also in California. The politicians haven't been instructed on this yet. They don't know what is going on with this subject, because this is something that is coming out of Europe. I've mentioned that a couple of times. So the Europeans are ahead of us on this. And whenever I have had to try to find answers to these questions, I inevitably have to go across the Atlantic. And right now I'm dealing with companies in Germany, Spain, London, and in Italy, because they have had to deal with this before we have, because we have so many resources in the United States. All we have to do is to lower the cost of the resource and just keep going on our merry way. They can't do that. They had to figure out how to take what they had and massage it and make it work for them. So they've come up with the electrolysis process. I'm dealing with a company in Germany called Inept. I'm dealing with a company in Australia for the vertical farming system that we're going to put in the farm. But in most all cases, I can't find answers to this in the U.S. Now, in my research, what I've found is that these systems are actually very small. In fact, I mentioned a couple of times the electrolysis process. Okay, the electrolysis process is being done in a box about the size of a microwave.
Wow.
And if you need more hydrogen to be created, you just stack up these boxes like you do computer servers in a data center on racks. And they have little tubes that go in and out, and they draw off the hydrogen and collect them. So if you need more hydrogen, you just put up more boxes. So it's not like you're looking at something the size of a house or a large diesel engine. You're looking at things that are very small, affordable, and flexible, to the point where, like I was saying before, the future of this really is domestic, where we see that this actually can be done in a home, where the home actually creates its own utility. Think about that. You don't have to connect to a natural gas. You don't have a natural gas bill. But this does mean that you pay a bill.
Okay.
Because remember, you have to have water to create the hydrogen.
Wow.
But there's a way around that also. I found a company down in Tampa called the Genesis system. They have contracts right now with the Army. They can actually generate water out of the air.
Wow.
And take it to Arizona or even New Mexico. Sit it down and have this system from the Genesis system create water. The water then goes to the inept electrolysis boxes. We then generate hydrogen from that, and the end result is we then can power an entire complex without having to have a source of water or a source of electricity.
Wow. That is amazing. So in my conversation with Kwaku, I learned a lot about electricity generation, and it takes about 8 gigawatts to power the city of New York. So how much power can this electrolysis process generate? Do you know that information?
It's very, yeah, it's very negligible. It's very negligible at all. I mean, I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day. It's like if you're lighting a cigarette and you know, just the light or the flash. That's it. Because it's a spark. It's not like you have to continuously send electricity in. Because remember, once you generate the electricity, it's generating its own electricity along the path, and it's doing the electrolysis internally. Now, the farm, that's an interesting question. How much electricity am I going to need to do all of this in total? We're talking about a 5 megawatt engine that is going to be needed to be put on the property, which is not a large size engine. It's probably an engine that will fit inside of a small size garage.
And that engine that will fit in a small size garage can provide you with 5 megawatts, which, according to Kwaku in his breakdown of electricity, it only takes one megawatt, or even one just watt. No, I think it's megawatt. It takes only 1 megawatt to run an entire house. So 5 megawatts can definitely run your factory, is what you're saying.
Right.
Very interesting.
So the 5 megawatts is probably the amount of electricity needed to be able to run 5 houses. When you had the CEO on from Farm to Flame Energy, we have an association. What I'm looking to probably do with him is all of the plant waste that we get out of our system will give to him, and that will be then ground up and then burned and then converted back into electricity.
Wow.
So we have a relationship along those lines as well.
That's interesting. So let's get back into your system. The energy stuff is very interesting, but you know, at the core, your product is more farmland, and I mean not farmland, but food and generating produce, and use innovative ways to get that goal done. But at the end of the day, that goal is just generating food. So I want to know more about your process in for it's called Alpha Aqua, and this is how you grow both shrimp and salmon. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, Alpha Aqua is a company out of Norway. Again, I had to go to Europe, and the shrimp is going to be grown in a 6-tier high robotic ramping system. The eggs are placed up on the top. They're 6 high because it takes 6 months for a shrimp egg to go from an egg to a harvestable adult. They're then harvested out, and we sell that to the wholesaler. The salmon actually take 24 months to go from an egg to a harvested adult salmon, which is a couple of feet long. We'll have tiered start times so that we're constantly growing salmon and don't have a massive amount going out at one time. That again is going to be partial robotically controlled to make sure that the fish are eating properly, get fed at proper times, and we'll have to have people to observe them, make sure that their motility, they're swimming properly, and they look healthy. Those are the two systems we're going to be getting from Alpha Aqua.
Oh, okay. So what's the trade-off in value between like a naturally caught salmon and a farm-grown salmon?
I don't want to gross anybody out, but the salmon that you get that is grown out in the water and is grown in nets. They swim again in a caged area, and when those salmon poop, it goes down to the bottom of the cage, and they just continuously swim over it for the entire lifetime of the fish. Our system draws that off, and that fish manure actually gets turned back into liquid fertilizer that actually supplies the produce and the fruit. So it's a more healthy environment the way that we do it, as opposed to the outdoor in cage area where they don't go in and clean the nets and all this stuff. So that stuff is constantly there.
So you're telling me it's a scam? Like outdoor caught salmon is not actually like, it's just outdoor in just presence only. They're not like wild salmon just swimming around the Atlantic. Like they're just grown in a cage just outside.
Yeah. That the salmon that you usually find is the type of salmon I've just described. Most people wouldn't want to expose themselves to that. And it's for that reason that those companies don't really talk about it. There's nobody running out in the middle of the ocean with. I guess they do this, but if you throw your nets out into the general ocean, you're going to get, who knows what. But if you grow salmon in a net, you're going to have all salmon. The problem is you don't keep it clean. Okay, so that's what happens.
Okay. Very interesting. And also on your website, it says something about the rolling bench system. Like what advantage does that provide?
The rolling bench system. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You got me on this one.
From the vertical farm system?
Oh, okay.
Or
all right, yeah. Yep. Okay, the vertical farm system is coming in from Australia. Okay, because of the higher electric costs that they have to deal with in Australia, they come up with a total enclosed robotic system that actually is a bench or a platter or a how can I best describe it? It's an area where the seeds get placed and the robot takes it up and puts it into the shelf where it's then monitored, it's lit, it's watered, and that platen is then brought down when 30 days go by, because that's all you need for the leafy greens and lettuce. And then it's brought out, the head's chopped off, and I've run out of time.
oh, wow. And as
I
far as
didn't
the
know what you were
technology thing,
talking about. Yeah, I didn't know what you were talking about because that's something honestly about all the time. Think about it under those in those words.
Okay.
John Leslie is
Yeah,
the president of the company. Yeah, we're going to utilize blockchain by placing a barcode on the side of each package, so that someone could scan that barcode or QR code and see what the entire growing history is for that product. That is something that we don't see here in the U.S. That again is something that is used in Europe. And what we're going to do is we're going to be collecting all of the growing history of each product and encasing that into a blockchain that will then allow a customer to be able to scan and see if it's involved in a recall or if it hasn't, where it's grown, what the conditions were, the whole 9 yards. And this is another way of us creating a stickiness to our customers, because we're going to be totally transparent of the conditions that we have kept the fruit or the produce under until it was harvested.
Okay. So using blockchain traceability, you're pretty much going to track these products that you grow from its inception all the way until it's sold to the customer, and the customer can keep track of
Yes.
this information with a QR code. And
Yes.
when like walking me through the process, when someone scans this QR code, what exactly are they going to see?
They're going to be able to see the data profile of whatever that they have in their hand. My package of tomatoes in my hand, I would be able to scan that QR code with my cell phone, and what would appear on my phone will be the name of the product, the date it was harvested, when it was sown, in other words, when we put it in water as a seed, where it was grown, when when it arrived at the store, presumably, and then it would allow them to be able to see whether it was involved in any sort of recall or not.
Wow. And what platform are you using to do that? Are you using Ethereum, and is this a smart contract mechanism that allows this traceability?
Well, for security reasons, I'm not going to go into that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. But also, you use robotics, and you mentioned a few times already how you're using robotics in order to make sure the fish are fed and that they aren't swimming in their own poop. Could you go into more of that? And who's running this? You have your own programmers on staff? Like it sounds like an expensive operation.
Expense is not a word I actually associated with this. It's actually an affordability issue. What do I mean by that? We're going to be able to grow more food using the robotic methodologies than without. Because, let's go down the tier. The fish, we've already talked about that. There's robots there. It's built in. We have robot arms that monitor them being fed, how long light has been exposed to them, when how many days they were in each level, when they were harvested. That goes into that blockchain. Pour the seeds into the system. It then plants, fertilized waters, places it into the racking, exposes it to the light. The temperature is maintained for the air. It's brought out. It's harvested. The things we didn't talk about for robot control are in the greenhouse. The tomatoes and the strawberries are going to be monitored by roving robots that go up and down the aisles. We're going to have drones overhead spreading the pollen so that people don't have to get up and beat it with a broom or something like that. The robots are actually going to be going up and down the aisles in the strawberry and the tomato greenhouses and actually picking the product based on the criteria that we have to supply the vendor. So if you're a vendor and you want your strawberries ripe to the point where they can be eaten tomorrow, you're going to supply them to let's say a wedding. You don't want strawberries that are going to be a couple of days from their peak ripening. We can then send the robot into the greenhouse up and down the aisle, and it will pick that criteria strawberry based on what we've told it to pick.
Wow, that's interesting.
We can do the same with the tomatoes also. Okay, so we're using a company called Ecoation in Canada that's been doing this now for a couple of years, and this cutting edge technology. We use that, and we will use that. We will feed that data into, again, our blockchain repository for collection purposes so that we have all the information there for all the crop that's going out to any one vendor.
Wow. And
Uh,
you're also using an AI called Root AI that identifies and classifies the different fruits and vegetables that you grow. Could you explain more
yeah.
about that process?
We're also using artificial intelligence in regards to our harvesting and our maintaining process that happens in these environments to make sure that we've got all of the proper conditions optimal. Here's an example. During the course of the year, we all know that in the summer, the sun is the hottest, the highest, and gives us the most heat. We need to make sure that we coordinate our artificial lighting that's inside to supplement that, to make sure that we get the optimum conditions all year long. That's the type of data that the artificial intelligence system will provide us, that will go into the light controllers for all the overhead lights and make sure that the amount of sun that we get marries up to the amount of light that we also generate, so that the crop that's receiving this blend during the course of the year gets what it needs, however long it needs, at the proper time, because plants also need to rest. It can't be lit all day long. So there has to be sort of like a plant downtime, if you will. And then we have to also make sure that it's warm enough, because here we go again. Not in California where you're up, but in the East Coast, we have violent, cold winters. So we have to make sure we keep the proper relative humidity inside of the greenhouse so that we push back against all the cold that will be trying to radiate into the greenhouse from the outside.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your winters, because I was in New York a few years ago
Yeah,
during 2013, which was like one of the coldest winters on record, and I just couldn't I
yeah, it
couldn't
was
do it
brutal.
because I'm originally from Florida, and once that winter set in, I was like,
I was raised there.
I'm gone. I was out of there.
Yeah, I was raised there, man. We're not recording because of the pause here, but when it's New York and it's winter, everybody looks like they're a pimp, because everybody's got the pimp hats on, the whole 9 yards. And if you're ever in New York going down Fifth Avenue and that wind hits you, brother, you'll wish to God you had a warmer coat
Oh
on.
boy. Yeah, I'm not. Oh yeah, it goes all the way to your bones, and you start feeling it on the inside. You're like,
Oh
yo,
my
what's
God.
going on? Like, I'm not. Who voluntarily lives in this weather? Not me. I'm not about to volunteer for this weather. I'm
My
out of
family.
here. Yeah, Juan, I'm glad you came on this podcast and let me know about all the interesting things that you're working on. I wouldn't imagine that a farm company is using so many different innovative technologies. You're using AI, you're using robotics, you're using blockchain. What is there anything that you've met? Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet as far as your innovation?
One of the things that I hope to be able to get into, if once we get all this stuff going, is to actually get ourselves involved with building affordable homes. Because again, I went through a large discussion about energy. There's no reason why we can't take that energy piece and create a, a community around it, so that the houses are supported by affordable energy. And then accordingly, we can place a grocery store in there in that community as well. But I'm hoping to be able to get involved with construction, affordable homes, modular homes, and we can actually create a sort of like a triangle with affordable homes at the top, the farm or the grocery store on this corner, and over here we're going to have an energy source for the community to be able to be supported.
Very interesting. Yeah, so Medallion XLN, we are a blockchain company, and we are building an asset management platform that uses blockchain, artificial intelligence,
Okay.
and we also have a metaverse implementation.
Okay.
And in the future, we intend on building out smart cities to test out or to prove out the usefulness of our technology. Because if you think about it, all assets that we use, it comes from somewhere, and it allows you to track, or the technology, Medallion XN, will allow you to track the ownership of these assets, and also you, the metaverse interface allows you to try out various workflows without having to commit to it. So you can try out, let's say we created your farmland or your farm factory in the metaverse. We'll be able to put in like your dream set in place, try out the different try out the different models that you have, and then figure out like where it can be optimized and what's necessary and what's not necessary. So, I'm grateful for this conversation. So, what is there anything else that you would like to promote? Are you in a fundraising mode, or is it like what would you like to promote?
We're doing a fundraiser right now for a small satellite farm to go into a small city here in Allegheny County. We're also looking for those investors. I don't want to say qualified investors, but they probably would be qualified investors to help us the fundraise for the first hub operation. We're looking to do a $50 million raise for the hub, and we're looking to do a smaller piece, somewhere to the tune of around $300,000 for the small satellite farm.
Uh, and what's your process on that? Have you been able to raise any money as of yet?
I think we're probably going to hear something very positive in 2 weeks.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome. Well, the very innovative stuff that you're working on. Grateful for this conversation, and let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch, and
absolutely.
as my business grows and your business grows, maybe there's an opportunity for collaboration in the future.
My pleasure.